Very warm welcome, everyone. This Monday afternoon, I'm Andrew Dacres, Chief Executive of West London Business, and I'm joined by my colleagues Amy, Elliot, and also Amelia, who is strangely labelled as me, which is a little bit confusing. You may want to rename yourself Amelia, unless you're going through a name change without knowing about it. Yeah, a warm welcome. We've got lots to cover in the next hour or however long it takes. I'm going to kick off with a little bit of background on the West London Business Awards in just a moment. I will then pass over to Amy to dive down into some of the detail, and then she'll pass back to me as we close what should be a fairly short and punchy presentation. Then we'll open up for questions from the floor. We're hoping that you've come fully prepared with some questions for us. And if you don't have questions right now, hopefully our presentation will prompt you to think of a few to throw our way. So Amy, if you can move me on to the next slide. Yes, that's the agenda that's in store for the next half hour. And I think at some point in that half hour, Amy is going to do a live demonstration of Zealous, the awards platform through which you feed your entries in. A little bit of background on the West London Business Awards. They kicked off over 10 years ago, back in 2013. So this is our 13th edition in 2026. There are some 26 categories, which Amy will talk you through in a moment. And the sort of, I suppose, major prize of the night is West London Company of the Year, which is currently held by Dina Foods of Park Royal. Way back in 2013, our very first winner of Company of the Year was Colac Snack Foods. But over the past decade, of course, the mix of companies that enter the awards has necessarily evolved. Although I'm glad to say that Colac Snack Foods are still going strong in our geography. The climax of the awards journey is the gala dinner and awards night, which takes place in February each year. And I think if we move on to the next slide, just to give you a flavour of some of the stellar hosts that we've had over the years. Back in 2015, which was my first experience of the West London Business Awards, we had Jason Donovan. Fast forward to 2017, we had that famous West Londoner Connie Huck. Some of you may remember from Blue Peter days, but she's done lots since then. 2020, Gabby Roslin was our host, and in 2023, Rory Bremner. So a real kind of cross section. The shift, I suppose, in recent years has been that since Rory entertained us all with comedy, we've kind of stuck to that theme of comedian. So watch this space over the coming weeks for who you will reveal as our host in February 2026. But it is always a great night, and really a kind of a party night where I'm always keen that in what can be quite challenging times for business leaders and employees, that we have a great party at Twickenham Stadium where everyone can let their hair down. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Amy to tell you more about the awards journey and process.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andrew. Yes, hello everyone. So yeah, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in terms of, okay, so you're interested in getting involved with the awards. What are kind of the next steps? Where do you go from there? So first of all, if you want to take a screenshot of this page, it might be quite useful, but this is outlining all of the award categories that we have on offer. I believe it's 27 in total, actually, not 26. I think the 27th, however, is that coveted West London Company of the Year, which you can't directly enter into, but if you win in any of these categories here, you're automatically shortlisted for the overall West London Company of the Year. As you can see here on the top left-hand side, we've got our sector leadership for SMEs. Now, for this section, the idea is that you can only apply for one of these awards within this category. So, we kind of ask all the entries to kind of focus on what they think is the most important part of their organization, whether you're a creative enterprise or maybe you work in the hospitality sector, to make sure and to focus down on that particular category. Underneath, we do also have more general SME sort of categories that you can also apply to, and there's no limit on how many of those you want to enter. That also includes our new West London One to Watch, which I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. We also have our two specific corporate only categories. That's environmental corporate and socially responsible year. And on the right hand side, we have our next gen categories. So these are specifically sort of aimed at the next generation, up and coming sort of people and young people in West London, separated into three categories. So we've got kidpreneur, teenpreneur, and young entrepreneur. And those are always a lot of fun as well, seeing, people that are coming up in the West London area, maybe are still in primary school for some of them, but still already coming up with some incredible ideas. So that category is always a lot of fun. And we also have our individual awards. So these are a little bit different to the sort of everything else here that we have on offer. They're specifically recognizing individual persons in your organization. We have Lifetime Achievement and West London Business Leader of the Year. These are our two ones that we've had before. And we're also now introducing our West London Hero Award, which we'll talk about on the next slide. And finally, right at the bottom, we have the ones that are open to all organizations. This year, we've done things a little bit differently. We've split Apprentice of the Year into two categories based on age. So we also have kind of the 30 plus category, which is new, which is kind of focused towards retraining new apprentices. We also have Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Business of the Year, our Park Royal Business of the Year, which is obviously open to Park Royal businesses only, and our new category, which is West London Business Booster of the Year, which I will show a little bit in more detail on the next slide, hopefully. Yes. So these are three new categories. Business Booster of the Year is kind of evolving from our incubator and accelerator award that I believe we had last year, but we've slightly broadened the term, so it doesn't just include accelerators, incubators, but also business support programs, co-working spaces. So the idea is to be a little bit broad in terms of what Business Booster actually means. We also have the West London One to Watch. So this is slightly changed from our Startup of the Year. This is now aimed at not just startups, but also fast growth companies that have demonstrated, significant growth in the last 18 months in West London. And finally, in our individual category, we have the West London Hero Award. So this is we set this up to celebrate, individuals made a significant difference in the work they've delivered, maybe just for their company, but also perhaps in the wider community, whether this is, through community service or outreach, maybe just within the team themselves, that they've been, really bringing the team together in socials, bring a positive atmosphere, anything like that. So that was something new that we wanted to recognize, not just, lifetime achievement, long-time leaders, but also anyone throughout an organization that you want to recognize. So in terms of eligibility, of course, you have to be either an individual or an SME or a corporate that's doing business in West London. And I'll show on the next slide what exactly entails as West London. When you go and click on any of the individual awards, you'll see the specific criteria. For our SME criteria, we're going off what the government pages use. So we're going with your company cannot have more than 250 employees, or I believe an annual turnover of more than £44 million. So that is the SME criteria that we're working with. I know in the past we haven't explicitly labeled that. The category winners will then, as I said previously, make up the shortlist for the overall West London Company of the Year, which will be revealed on the night. And shortlisted companies will need to purchase at least one ticket to that lovely gala dinner and ceremony that will be taking place at the end of February in 2026. And we'll reveal more details about the host and the venue closer to the time. All right, so what exactly is West London in terms of the eligibility? So of course, all of our 7 West London boroughs, so that's Harrow, Hillingdon, Barnet, Brent, Ealing, Hounslow and Hammersmith and Fulham, obviously, of course, those will count. But we do also accept nominations from sort of West London adjacent boroughs that we work with. So we've got Kensington and Chelsea, we've got Richmond, Wandsworth, Spelthorne, and this list is also constantly evolving, expanding, as of course we work with a variety of partners across West London. So if you're not in any of those boroughs that we listed, but you think that perhaps you still have a good connection to West London, do get in touch and we can see what we can work with.
And I'd just add, this is really all about West London identity, which clearly extends beyond our core 7 boroughs to those adjacent boroughs. And it's really important to note that it's not just about businesses that are based in these boroughs, but if you're doing business in our West London geography, then you're eligible to enter. So it really is a very inclusive award scheme in that regard.
Yeah. Okay, so we've also got here our key dates here. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of this page, because this is quite important, please do. But this is also all on awards.westlondon.com as well, in case you forget any of the dates. So the big one, our entries close on Friday, the 17th of October. So please do get your entries in before then. We'll then reach out to all of the companies that have been lucky enough to be shortlisted on Friday, the 7th of November. So if you have been lucky enough, you will get an email from us then. And then this will be publicly revealed about a week later. And we'll also celebrate all of the shortlisted nominations at our annual Christmas reception, which takes place at the House of Commons. So that will be a lovely occasion, always is. In terms of the actual final award ceremony itself, you can get the date in. It's Friday, the 27th of February, 2026. That date is not changing. So do get that in your calendars. Keep that day free. Immediately after the ceremony as well, we'll be releasing our winners e-brochure, and we'll be celebrating the highlights of the events, and we'll also be doing official news releases, professional photographs that we'll be sharing with everyone, so you can also celebrate your success with us. Perfect, yes. And as I mentioned, awards.westlondon.com, that's your hub for everything related to the awards. It's got the categories, it's got an FAQ page as well, for all of those previous sort of eligibility criteria questions that I mentioned earlier, just in case you need to check back on those. And the portal that we use for all of our entries is Zealous, which I will be very shortly showing to everyone. Zealous is great because you can save all of your entries as a draft, so it's not just you have to immediately fill it all out. So if you do want to have a look at the questions, you can firstly go into Zealous, have a look, and then once you've written out the answers that you want on a separate Word document, you can just go in, copy and paste them back into the form and submit it like that. If you are still unsure, you've seen all of our categories, but you're not quite sure, whether or not you should apply, you don't know which category you should apply for, you can use our pre-apply form. This is something that we're trialing this year. It's just a very short form that you can submit. Just write a couple of words about your organization, and we will get back to you and let you know what categories we think would be most suitable for you. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm hopefully going to make a seamless transition over to Zealous, which I hope works. So hopefully everyone can see my page. Brilliant. So I'm just going to use the example of SME sector leadership, but this is the same format for all of the other categories. So when you click on the awards page, your chosen sort of category that you'd like to enter, you'll come to this overall page, which gives you a kind of quick summary of what the award is, what the criteria is, and also the key questions that the judges will be looking for when they're sort of marking each of the entries. So as you can see here, it explains, since this is the SME sector leadership, it explains what the qualifications for an SME need to be. And as you can see here, we've got each of the individual categories listed here below. So for this one, you do have to choose only one category within SME sector leadership. So how we do that is we go to, this says test apply, but for you we'll say apply. Hopefully this will show up with the new page. Brilliant. So once again, it's got the guidelines there for you, just in case you've forgotten them. And as you'll see at the bottom, it's also got the judging criteria here. So these are the key questions that you'll be needing to answer. So if you want to, take those out, put them in a Word document at this time, that is perfectly fine. And you can come back and fill them in once you've got, the final drafts of your questions sorted. And as you can see at the top, you've also got the option to select which category. So, if you wanted to apply for, let's say, creative media, you just make sure you selected that, unselect business professional services, and then we can continue. It doesn't actually change the questions that you're asked, so don't worry about that. It is the same questions for each of the ones under this section, so that's all completely fine. So once you've decided which category you want to submit to, we can go to the next stage, which is the application form itself. And as you can see, this is all very self-explanatory. Obviously, we're asking for your key contact details. We do ask that you provide your business logo as well, just because if you are successful in being shortlisted, we will need to feature your logo and a little bit about your organization in the e-brochure that comes out after the gala ceremony. So do please upload a nice high quality image that we can use. And as you can see here below, we've got all the criteria. We're not asking for lots of detail, max words, 250 each on each of the questions. And there's usually only about 4 to 5 questions on each award category. So, we're not asking for essays out here. And as you can see at the bottom, we also have the option for you to upload any additional media. So that could be, a financial report, recent news that's been published about your organization, just some promotional images of an event or, your workspace, anything that you think is suitable and relevant to the question. We always say the more the merrier. I'm sure Andrew will say this in the top tip section as well. But the more items, the more information that you can bring in to support your application, the better, basically. The judges really love it when there's lots of images or videos that you can provide. Brilliant. And then in terms of
I'm gonna come in on that, Amy, and just say I think there's a limit there of about, is it 4 or 5 so attachments? And that's probably a fairly sensible cap. So, don't go completely crazy. I have seen the odd entry over the years where there's been, 20 attachments, and at that point, you're overwhelming the judges. So, do pick the best additional supporting content you can.
No, that's a good point. Yes, we have limited it, so you can't just keep adding endlessly. There is a limit, and I know I've had a couple of questions as well in terms of video length. So there isn't an explicit video maximum length. If you do want to support your application with that, but we do recommend that probably about maximum 3 minutes. We don't want it to be, a 20-minute summary of everything about the organization. We do want you to, be concise in your supporting evidence if possible. All right, so once the application's all done, you've filled in all the questions, you just go to the payment page. Now, as you can see, there's 2 options. So each application is £30 for a standard submission. If you are entering multiple categories, we recommend that you do this by invoice instead. So if you are considering, maybe submitting to 5 different awards, let's say, just get in touch and we can file an invoice for you, and then you can select the multiple entries option instead of having to, do £30 every single time. Something important to mention as well is if you are a business based in Park Royal and you would like to enter the Park Royal Business of the Year Awards, as long as you've submitted another entry, you get free entry to the Park Royal Business of the Year Award as well. So if that's confusing at all, or if you're, not sure if you qualify as a Park Royal business, just get in touch and we can double check for you where you're based. But that's just specifically for Park Royal Business of the Year. And, once you've done that, basically you're good to go. You put in your card details and then you can submit your entry, and then that's basically all done. And then it's basically over to us to send over to the judges, and then we'll be in touch if you are successful in being shortlisted. So essentially that's the whole process, and you can save as well at any part of this process. So as I said, if you need to take a bit of time to review your answers, you can always just come out at any point. So there's no need to do it all in one go, basically. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to go back to the PowerPoint, hopefully here, and I will pass back over to Andrew to talk about top tips.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amy. So these top tips are, I think, expanded upon in a page on the awards website, but just to recap some of the areas that quite often get raised with us and maybe preempt some of your questions, although we're still hoping in a few minutes' time you're going to have a good body of questions for us. I'd emphasize, I suppose, reading the question and reminding yourself a few times of the judging criteria and making sure that you're answering those questions directly. Wherever you can, do include metrics to help to provide some evidence to back up your claims. That's where sometimes those supporting attachments can be helpful. We've seen hospitality businesses, for example, that have used TripAdvisor ratings to provide sort of evidence of sort of customer satisfaction and delight. Don't leave it until the last minute or do it on the side. It does need a bit of focus. Sometimes those shorter word counts can actually be harder to stay within. So I certainly, from my own experience of entering these things over the years, sometimes I've found myself writing longer sort of bits of narrative and text, and then sort of summarizing down to stay within the word count. As much as possible, do sort of bring your people into the story, whether it's staff, customers, community beneficiaries. If you're doing outreach programs, do make make clear who those stakeholders are, and try and get perhaps some quotes from them to bring alive the story. Do tell us your story and give us context, particularly in that first part of most of the submissions. Sort of first question and criteria is normally trying to draw out the context of the particular project or your business. Get the judges' attention. Try and make sure that your entry stands out from the crowd. And that's where photos and video can often help bring alive what it is that you've been sort of describing in text. It's worth taking a look at some of our previous winners and getting a sense of how they won. And of course, within the awards website, we have a library of e-brochures going back over the past 12 years that you can download. I'd say particularly in recent years, not so much in the early years of the awards, we've included sort of short summaries of exactly what it was for each of those the winning entries that caught the judge's eye and got those winners over the line. Keep it brief. I think the word count is going to sort of is force you to keep your sort of core entry and sort of summary to the point. But as we've described already, you've got that opportunity to sort of enrich the entry with those additional attachments. You will, I'm sure, quite often, particularly in those sector leadership categories, potentially be sharing some commercially sensitive data. Do flag that with us. You can send a note to Amy, or if indeed it's the Excel spreadsheet that we ask folk to complete and submit as part of those sector leadership categories, summarising your financial performance over the past few years. If some of that isn't public domain, again, just write that onto the spreadsheet that it's commercially sensitive. I mean, we won't be. There's no reason for us to publish any of those numbers externally, and it remains entirely confidential within the awards team. But it may have a bearing, for example, on who we put onto judging. I mean, we do have quite an in-depth screening process to make sure that we avoid any conflicts of interest. But it's just useful for you to make it very clear to us when you're sharing that additional data just to strengthen your entry. And I'd say on those sector leadership categories, I've struggled to think of a winner over the years in those sector leadership categories that hasn't completed the financial performance sort of spreadsheet and template that we provide. It's very important evidence for those categories. You may want to showcase quality marks and any other awards that you've received over the years, and that could be very diverse, from Good Place to Work through to Prompt Payment Code, through to ISO quality standards. Wherever though you've got those already on your on your sort of awards shelf, let us know, because that can sometimes provide additional reassurance and confidence to the judging panel. And then finally, make sure that you've got that deadline that Amy mentioned earlier on a post-it stuck on your wall, so you don't forget the deadline as it gets closer. So those are our top tips, and look forward to more discussion shortly. Amy, it's back to you to facilitate questions.
All right, brilliant. So that is the end of our presentation. So the floor is now open for the Q&A. If you want to just drop a message in the chat if your question, or if you prefer to, say it out loud and speak, we can also, I think, give you the ability to unmute very temporarily. So basically the floor is open to the audience for any and all questions.
We've had one question in the chat, just to point that out in case nobody's seen the Q&A bit. And the question is, do you include community interest companies, i.e. not-for-profit, as well as traditional limited companies? So just to be clear, Sat, yes, we do.
Indeed. Do make use of the chat, or throw up your hands to ask any questions. No question is too daft. So yeah, I can see we've also had a question just affirming up that the word count is 250 for all questions in all categories, and yes, absolutely, it is. Our judging panel are a very experienced group of individuals, but they do volunteer as judges, hence the desire to not have vast essays to review, but also important from the perspective of maintaining sort of standardized scoring across entries, that we're consistent in the sort of the core narrative and evidence that we're comparing one entry against the other on.
And this is where the additional information that you can upload comes into play as well, which is why the judges consider it quite important, so that you can really hone in on some of those things that you've had to shorten your answers for.
Yeah, and I'd say probably worth cross-referencing there. So, if someone's reading through the 250 words, there's a particular attachment that you want them to look to, put that in brackets and sort of signpost across to that additional bit of evidence. What I'd also add, whilst we sort of wait to see whether anyone's got any more questions that you would like to throw our way, is that if you've got an entry in draft, you can reach out to the sort of core team. I don't know, is this a West London Business members only extra service? I'm not sure, but you can ask us to just do a sense check of your entry, and sort of make sure there's nothing obvious in the core bit of the entry that you've missed. But clearly that does need to happen a few weeks before the deadline. If we're getting right up to deadline day, there may just not be the capacity in the team to undertake the review, as it can get very busy by awards deadline week.
And can I also just add, sorry, Andrew, I just want to add, please put in a mobile phone contact, because previous experience has shown that if we can't get hold of you, it's really difficult to ask any follow-up questions, which also, impedes your chance of being shortlisted. So please put in a current mobile phone and contact name so that we can get hold of you.
I see a question has come in from Sat around how many people typically attend awards night, and just say, it's a black tie dinner, and we'll normally have around 450 guests at Twickenham Stadium, and it's a night in two parts. The first half of the night is sort of lecture theatre style for an hour or so for the core awards presentation, and then everyone moves through to a second space for dinner, and at the end of dinner, some of the big awards of the night get sort of presented, and we've kept going back to Twickenham Stadium as there are actually a very few places in West London that can host that many people in two separate spaces side by side for those two different bits of the evening, and they look after us very well.
And yes, it's a total cross selection from local government, central government sometimes, and business community. So it's a good night.
Yeah, a good place to sort of see and be seen. Any more questions? Please don't be shy. As well, we may have been very efficient in all of the grounds that we've sort of preemptively covered. So we don't want to take up more of your afternoon than necessary, but hopefully we've given you peace of mind if there were particular areas that you wanted us to clarify. So I think we will probably at this point wish you all well. And just say if there were any questions that you were too shy to ask in this public forum, please do just drop Amy a line at amy.yang@westlondon.com, and she'll, I'm sure, get back to you swiftly with any points of clarification. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.